About 3 or 4 days ago, there was a press conference that was held with the chief of police, and a lot of questions were somewhat answered, but not really. And it was just really half-assed as far as how all of this kind of went down. But I wanted to show it to you guys and give some commentary to it. Give me some thoughts in the comments. It looks like that they brought in pathologists that worked during the 9/11.
We had our own senator on the Senate floor talking about misinformation and other actors and people doing some things for nefarious reasons.
John Pelletier seems to be really caught up in this point of misinformation and bad actors. And although I'm not saying that everybody's information is all the way accurate, I don't know why he's so caught up on that when, there's a lot of unanswered questions that he refuses to kind of really address. The very basic one was at the press conference with Jeremy Lee when he asked, did you direct these people to this way, causing a bottleneck situation? He couldn't really answer that. He would say, I directed people to safety. What does that mean? And then we talked a little bit about on the other drop, the other video about the fact that some of this whole thing, there's going to be an incident report written on this, and it's not going to be written by it. I don't know if it's independent. I'm hoping that it will be, but it's going to take a good couple of years, a year or two, to even conclude this report, which in my opinion is I feel like we're overlooking a lot of the issues at hand. When a leader can't answer the basic questions, it always concerns me. It really does. When there's a lack of transparency in delivery, there's just a lot of concerns that I have.
How many parents have submitted on behalf of children? How many minors are on the list? Can you give us a sense of any minors?
Okay,
So this is a very interesting question. How many minors are on the list that you can give us a sense of any minors? This is a very important question, right? Which should be a priority in the questioning.
the question is how many minors we have on the official unaccounted for list, correct?
Or among the DNA, if you know that the DNA is a child.
I don't have a specific number. I haven't looked at that specific number. I know we have a few minors, but I haven't looked at that specific number. I don't have one for you at this time.
Among DNA. And then
I don't have it.
List, is there a list?
So on the unidentified, I know we for sure have one. I know that we've made some notifications, and then we also have some that we have not yet made some notifications on. So we're still going through that, but we're going to release the list. And if there's an M minor on it, so you'll have that today, and it'll be very clear on the open cases specifically. Every name will have, and then instead of the asterisk, because there's no longer an FBI report with an MPD, they're all MPD reports, we've designated the M. Okay.
And the numbers seem to be at this point sort of gelling between DNA and missing.
Correct. And so the number 95 referred to the DNA. 96 of the 97 were processed in part through the mint or the morgue here. And we had one death that we know was related to the fire that passed away on Oahu. So that's why that's the difference in those.
If I understand this correctly, someone passed away in Oahu? So were some of these people, like during the fires, were they taken out of Maui? I thought I heard that somebody passed away in Oahu.
Just piggybacking on Gina's question, because there's been limited information, and obviously I understand to protect the integrity of the investigation, but there's been theories going around, specifically with the children, because school was canceled that day because of the winds, and so people have been asking us concerns about latchkey children. Did the parents get there in time? Did the children get out? But if we're going off of the victims list, I think we do see the 7-year-old and then the 14-year-old, and then off that unaccounted for list, there is that M next to 1. So is it safe or accurate to say that there are 3 children out of the lost loved ones, the victims, and the accounted for, or is that number expected to rise?
Okay, that was a really long-winded question.
So again, the children piece is coming up a lot because of how they're organizing this whole situation. The reporter is asking, was there 3 children, 2 children? Some children were latchkey kids. And so some of that they need to take into account. They received a report that I haven't yet to see released publicly, but apparently now if there is an M next to a person's name, it means that it's a minor.
So basically, to summarize, you're asking if the correct count for minors as of now is 3, correct? Okay.
So there's a couple points in that. And so let me answer the question, because I think there's also an underlying question that's in there. And that's this misinformation. That's whether it's the sabotage, whether it's some of the false reporting, and let's really, and what I mean by that, and just hear me out. I see you shaking your head. Hear me? No. Okay. Oh, okay. And so we've cleared out 3,200 names. We've cleared out 99%. Now, there's some legitimacy in those, which is the 1%, the 31 that we've got. 99% we've been able to mitigate, find them as accounted. And so when we were talking about horrible misinformation of hundreds of bodies that did not happen washing on shore or different things like that, it didn't happen. We have paid actors, some of them from other governments, as the senator talked about. Folks that believe that the earth is flat and the Holocaust didn't happen, trying to create disinformation.
That is interesting. And that could very well be the case. I don't want to take that away from that argument. It could very well be the case. However, I also don't want to overlook the fact that just the way in which this chief and other leaders have been acting, it just leaves people to speculate. And I think that that's something that they didn't do very well. And as far as bad actors, we'll point them out. What's wrong with pointing them out? There's people out here that have been saying that the people that have, raised funds, aren't doing it in the best intentions, that there is something more nefarious going on. A couple of locals have said that and have called out people as well. And, I think that that's important to point out. So call out all these bad actors. If there's somebody that the people need to be protected from that is disguising themselves as some kind of a savior, it needs to be called out, right? Or is it just me that feels that way? Let me know in the comments.
I think the facts speak for themselves for the very first time of what is the size and scope. And so I can't get and give you the official number when this is all said and done.
Now, let me just also point this out. I also feel like Chief Pelletier is a bad actor. I really do. I feel like, his inactions, there's a lot. They want to call this a natural disaster, which we know that that's not the case. A natural disaster. This is not a natural, this was a man-made disasters. So disasters are typically categorized in two groups. You have your man-made disasters and then your natural disasters. And then the natural disasters are like the earthquakes, the volcanoes, the hurricanes, the floods and fires, right? Whereas a man-made disaster would be like a power line or something more nefarious that was set up that initiated more to this situation. Yeah, so this is not a natural disaster. This was a man-made disaster. That's for sure. And it needs to be investigated because like the people have said in the council meetings, some of this seems very too much criminal between the fact that, nobody was warned, the power lines were down, the water piece. There's so many factors here that I'm just not liking, and we pointed this out and we just can't be nonchalant about this anymore. Just a thought.
But if you at 5.5 weeks haven't reported the person missing, it's probably not legitimate. And so moving from this day on, the only numbers we will count as unaccounted for will have an MPD missing persons report for this. And therein lies the clarity. And so we're only going to give the names when we release them if they're a minor, and we've got that. And we're only going to release the M on the unaccounted for list as we do. And even if we know that there may be some that we suspect to be juvenile, please understand, I have to be cognizant that we've only identified 74, and some of those we haven't made the official notifications on. And so I'm trying to make sure that we go with some humanity on some of this in case somebody's expecting some of that news. And so I'll just refer to those as the official counts for the minors at this point. But we know now what the 74 plus that 31 right now is the scope of where we're at. We could get other reports in, but not to what has been misrepresented. And again, 99%. That is huge. You want to talk about a story, the fact that we're able to do that is incredible. And so the work that went into that to help diffuse that.
Moina.
I know in past criminal investigations, I don't know how far the legal system is going to go with any of the lawsuits, but in past criminal investigations, the remains have been kept in evidence. Do you plan on returning the remains to family members, and how long will that process take?
Okay, so the question is, with previous criminal investigations, remains are held as evidence. So in this case, is that being treated as such? And if not, when will the remains be delivered to their loved ones, correct?
This is a very important question to ask about criminal investigations and how long remains are held, because just pay attention to how these people are treating this situation as far as whether it's a criminal investigation or not. Let me hit play, okay?
No, we're not planning on holding remains for criminal need. So there's no criminal need for us to hold the remains. So once they've been identified and their remains are as whole as we're going to have them, and the family's been notified, then they can select a funeral home and the remains can be delivered to them.
Yeah, I'm just going to follow up on that.
Yeah.
We've got over 50, I believe, that we've already released to the family. There's the mortuaries that are here have taken some of them. And Wendy, I actually really do appreciate the question. I think it's a really good question. I think it's very important that people understand this, though. This is not a crime. This is a natural disaster.
He said this is not a crime. This is a natural disaster. That is bullshit. This is bullshit. Hawaiian Electric says power lines started morning fires on August 8th, but not afternoon LaHAINA fires. So what part of it was it natural? Hawaiian Electric Company said that the power lines falling in high winds seemed to have caused a fire during the early mornings of August 8th, but power lines in West Maui had been de-energized for more than 6 hours by the time a second afternoon fire began in the Lahaina area. So isn't that why there is a lawsuit? The power lines and all that stuff, that's not a natural disaster. That's a man-made disaster. Two different kinds of disasters. We have natural disasters and we have man-made disasters. Natural disasters are your earthquakes, your volcanoes, your hurricanes, your floods. Those are the natural disasters. And then we have the man-made ones, which is war, pollution, nuclear explosion, fire, hazardous material exposure, power lines falling, explosion, and transportation accidents. Those are man-made. This is not natural. This was not natural. The inactions of these people was ridiculous. They didn't direct people to safety. They didn't know what the hell they were doing. They didn't communicate very well. They didn't know. They were telling people, don't stay over there. Can't cross the barricade. Some people had to not listen to these officers at the risk of being what? Tased, handcuffed, arrested. They had to do the opposite of what these people were telling them, what leadership was telling them to do.
It's a natural disaster, and that the law enforcement role is in some ways a secondary or even a further down the road role, but because of the investigation and the missing persons component, as well as the coroner's office, MPD has a role, but there's no reason to hold these because there has been no crime committed. These are victims of a horrific fire.
Your inactions were criminal. That your inactions in this situation was a crime, in my opinion. You're designated in these roles, okay? And you failed them. They all failed them. All of them. I'm going to link that press conference in the description box so you guys can watch it in its entirety. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I mean, there's still, I have a lot of questions, and I also don't like the way in which they are skipping over answering and just giving direct answers to these questions that people have. Okay, like we all saw, we know that this was not a natural disaster. And that's the piece that I don't appreciate. Don't misinform the crowds about that. This was man-made. This is what was man-made. And people have debated about other things that might have caused the fire potentially. But for now, what we know is that there was an electric company and your guys' inactions caused this to get bigger than what it should have been. Had there been a siren, had there been anything, and even now the governor has said, "Oh, I definitely regret that we didn't pull, we didn't do the sirens." Now he does. I don't understand. Like, get it together. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll see you guys on the next one, and we'll continue to look into this fire investigation and provide any updates. My hope is that Jeremy Lee will continue to, put some work on the ground on what exactly happened and what went wrong that day when people were met with barricades and police and all this stuff. Let me know your thoughts and comments. I'll see you guys on the next one. Rabbits out.